What's up, Mahmood?
Hey Eugene, how's it going, bud?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm great. You brought your friend?
Yeah, Chewy. He's my best employee, so always have to have him
Yeah,
with me.
Employee of the month. What does he do? He looks super busy.
Yeah, mostly I got him doing backlinks. He's not like the smartest technical guy, but he does the backlinks and he doubles a security detail. So,
He's
you
good
know.
at checking boxes. You give him a list of backlinks and he takes care of them.
Yeah, he's just on top of it, super responsible.
Nice.
So,
And he's big and strong, so security is kind of like his thing.
yeah, he's really good at that.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on, man. I wanted to first introduce you and just give everyone in the group that doesn't who's not familiar with you kind of like your transition throughout the group because you came in and you did different things in digital marketing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it all started back. I was working in corporate at a pretty large. It's that they did pretty much billions of dollars in revenue. Company doing as their marketing manager. So I was like primarily doing SEO there, but managing their AdWords campaigns and stuff like that. All their marketing channels actually. And then so I started doing my own thing. So I joined a group and was doing rank and rent. So build the sites first and then rent them out.
Hmm.
And so we were having some success with that. We're probably doing like a deal a month, I would say, at one point. And then we found Nick and his group, and Nick's sales process was just like super killer, right? So we ended up doing like 9 deals, I think, the first month we started working with Nick. And so we got really good at closing rank and rent deals. And
Mm.
a lot of the way, so we were doing it through the ads, but also we were partnering up with other people that had properties that needed to be sold. So that's the way we were keeping our inventory
Mm.
going, partnering up with people. And yeah, we were selling doing a bunch of deals. Eventually, yeah, with Nick's method, we got up to like 55K at one point, total for our agency, top line revenue. And then we pretty much then we had a little bit of problems with the rank and rent, lost some I don't I'm sure everyone went through this with the review apocalypse came and lost a bunch of rankings there.
Yep.
So we started doing some SEO as well, and we started adding SEO. We kind of fought our way back, so we're at like that 45K right now. But looking to scale and try to hit the million by next year, and then try to or the million annual top line revenue, and trying to shoot for 3 million in 2 or 3 years. It's kind of it's the main goal.
Well, I like that you actually have, something to look forward to. Like you have these goals. The 1 year plan is 1 million, and uh, the 2 year plan is 3 million.
Yeah, ideally. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
and
We'll
right
see
now
if it
you're at
happens.
45.
We'll see if it happens, right? But just trying
Yeah,
to backwards engineer my way into that spot. So
absolutely. So right now you're at half a million, 500K plus.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of doubling your effort.
If it was
And
that easy though, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It just, yeah, doubling, but it compounds eventually. Like once you get to a certain point, like your money starts to work for you, and you kind of like your properties start to work for you, and you create this momentum. And it doesn't take
Hmm.
as much effort. But you're right. The first, I'm still in there too. I think we're at I don't know 50 right now. I don't know what we did last month, but
Awesome.
50
Yeah.
something. But yeah, it's just we're still at that like uphill battle. But once you
Right.
get to a certain point, yeah, it gets easier from there. Um,
Well, one thing I noticed, I remember listening colloquially, I guess just like what I've heard from
mhm,
other agencies, right? Like yours and mine's, and everyone, all our peers, right? There seems to be like these tiers that everybody gets stuck at, right? So like the first one is like getting your first deal, right? That's like super hard. Then kind of like from the first deal to like that 5K mark, it's like a big struggle.
Hmm.
And then from the 5 to like the 10K mark, it's kind of easy. And then you get stuck again. You get stuck again at like that 10 to 15.
Yes.
And then after you figure that out, right? Then you have a pretty big jump, I think, from that 5 to 15. I think it's pretty easy to like close to like 40, 50. And then other people, and then a lot of people get stuck here, right?
Hmm.
Myself included. Like we've been here for a few years now. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and it's all about like you just need a bigger team, and
Right.
and like, you got to take that risk to grow, and invest.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
those
So.
milestones, you're absolutely right about those milestones. The 10K milestone is hard. You mentioned the first deal. Absolutely. The first deal
Hmm.
probably the first rank and rent deal, I took me, I don't know, like a year and a half, something crazy. And I kept
Right.
going back to web design. I just kept going back, like failing and going back to other services until it finally clicked. And you're absolutely
This.
right. The first deal was my biggest struggle. And I remember
Hmm.
it was uh, what was it? It was a stucco deal actually. And I remember it was
Okay.
$200 a week. It was my first deal, $200 a week, so that's $800 a month. And I was so happy because that was so much money. Like I'm making 800 out of this guy. That is a lot of money.
Right. Right.
And then you look
Look.
at now, you're like charging, 500, 600, 700 a week. And yeah, it, you definitely have a completely different mindset from when you close your first deal to the 10K, and then a different mindset from 10K to 20K. And then I think after 20K, it kind of gets a little easier. Like it's not hard to go from 20 to 30 as it is from 10 to 20.
Or even getting your first deal.
Right, or getting your first deal. Absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, after 20K, things got easier because I think it's just a rinse and repeat process. And that's what we keep saying in the group is it's the rinse
Mhm.
and repeat process. Even if you see, like, for example, me, even if I see that a deal it might not make it, I can see like a couple of red flags. I still go with the deal just to put in the reps. I still do the screencast. I still sit on the meeting. I do all the objections, even though I know this guy is not really on board. I already sniffed him out, but I give it a full shot because I know that's good practice. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And but you never know who's going to come through too, right? Sometimes it's the obvious ones and sometimes it's the one you didn't think. So you kind of have to.
I am so glad you mentioned that because that just happened to me with an epoxy site. I insisted on the owner having her husband in the meeting. I said he has to
Mhm.
be there. Well, I can make a decision on my own. I understand that, but he's your partner. He has to be there on the meeting. And she
Mhm.
did. We had to reschedule it a couple times. And I knew that she was not completely on board, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go through with this. And we got on the meeting, and I'm like, here's my price. It's, what is it, 650 a week, and basically, take it or leave it. What's your decision? She's like, yeah, at this point, I'm not ready to pull the trigger on this much money. I'm like, well, you closed the deal already from the jobs that I sent you, so it kind of makes sense. I'm selling you the potential here. I'm not selling you the money itself, but I'm selling you the potential of money if you're a good salesperson. And the husband just gets into the frame finally. He's like, hey, my name is Eric, by the way. Thank you for having me. He was just hiding the whole time. And then he gets into the frame. It's like, hey, my name is this and this, and thank you for jumping on. And then he's like, hey, can I take a minute with my wife real quick? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then it just put him on mute, and they talk. They get back on. They're like, yeah, let's do it. What are we talking about here? Let's go. Let's get to work. She said no.
Yeah.
She just said no. She was like, I can't do
Right.
it. And then he jumps in, and that changed the whole thing because I insisted on him being on the call.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a really good close story, right? You did everything right. You fought the temptation to just be like, all right, it's okay. Like I'll just talk to you, right?
Yep. And I
Because
didn't think I was going to get this deal. Like I had a bad feeling about this deal, and I was right because she was
yeah,
not. fully on board. Even though I
Right.
did pull back messages and all that stuff, he's like, yeah, 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 definitely want to try it out. Let's jump on this call. But then yeah, when she got on the call, she was like, no, this ain't for me. And thank God the husband was there. He
Well,
saved.
you know what? That's an interesting deal too, because we've been really like focusing on sales a lot right now. We're actually hiring another closer, and we just hired three more appointment setters. So
Wow.
totally, we're gonna have two closers and four setters. So yeah, so I mean, it's a little scary right now, right? Because like I'm taking on like this big budget. We gotta train a
Payroll.
new closer. Yeah, so you know, but. So I've been really like, thinking about sales a lot recently. So, but like that's an interesting case right there because, bringing it back to the rank to this business model where you're giving them the Costco leads for free and they've closed the deal. Like, how much more evidence
Hmm.
do you need, right? Like, so you've got the logical part covered, right? But why was she skeptical? And that was more of her emotional part, right? There was something about her that didn't trust
Hmm.
you, right? Well, I'm not,
Absolutely.
it's not like it's your fault, right? Really, or I guess it could be your fault, right? It's not your fault, but it's your problem, right? But like for whatever reason, she was suspicious. Maybe she got burned from Angie's or whatever, right? And so like even though she sees the facts, but like the emotions aren't there, so she's not ready to go, So like I think that's something to think about when you're doing a sales is like how do you navigate the emotional side? I think that's like just as important as like the logical side, because it doesn't make sense, right? You've already seen it, you've already tasted it, you know what it tastes like, right? Here's the price, this is what you
Hmm.
get. Like what else is there to talk about, you
Yeah,
know?
no, you're spot on, man. She logically she was on board, emotionally she was not, and the husband
Right,
co completed that part. He kind of gave her peace of mind, like this is doable.
right.
Yeah, they have to be both logically and emotionally involved for sure. The numbers take care of the logical part. The math makes sense, but then you have to actually, you know, b- woo them or show them that heaven island, like what is the outcome of all this stuff, all this money that you're invested in? If you can visualize it for them, they're like, oh yes, that's exactly what I want. I want to be at like
Hmm.
750K a year, or if you can visualize it for them, yeah, they'll be on board. And that's where the husband was. He was there. I
Right.
managed to get him, even though he was not in the frame. Um,
Well, maybe he was just more of a logical thinker, So he was just like, all
yeah,
right, like for me, I'm super logical, right? If you're gonna sell me, like I get offended. Well, maybe I mean, I've been in the game for so long, right? So like, if you start using sales tactics on me and stuff, like I can see them all right because I've studied this stuff, right? So it's like, bro, just tell me the numbers,
yeah,
and like,
right.
like if I'm gonna make money, let's go, like,
Yeah.
but not everyone's
And
like
I
that,
get
right?
that. I get that with some contractors too,
Hmm.
because sometimes I'll get on a call and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I get all that stuff that you talked about in the video." I'm like, "So the screencast makes sense, yeah. I know all that stuff. I already do Google Ads. I just got on the call for you to give me a number so we can get started." I've had that a couple times where people are like, "Yeah, I understand everything you're doing. I like it. Can we
Hmm.
get to the numbers?" And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, let's get to the numbers, I guess.
That's more rare though, I'd say, right? So,
It is rare, but sometimes you find a guy who's done rank and rent already. They have experience in marketing and they've bought leads or they're actually buying leads right now. And they're like, yeah, I already do this. Can you just give me a number so I can compare,
Mhm.
this agency to you, whatever. Yeah. And a lot of them end up like leaving Angie's List because they're like, I would rather pay more money and get actual customers than just sprinkle a little bit of money and no real, intent. That's the problem with Angie is the intent.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
call someone and they're not even in the market.
your conversion rate's going to be a lot lower on Angie's, so your cost
Hmm.
per acquisition for client is going to be way higher, right?
Right.
Plus, what sucks too is like it's not just like these guys are just giving quotes on the phones. Like they're driving out there and then like doing measurements and then giving estimates, and then it's like
Yeah.
these guys are seeing four or five people. Most of the time, they're going to go with like the number one player, like it's really good for like the huge, big, we're the best in the market.
Hmm.
Those guys, kill it on Angie's, I think, right? Because they can convert those leads. But
Right.
like if someone's just starting out or they're, on the middle or something, you're gonna pretty much get your ass handed to you by that guy, right? So you're
Right.
competing against that guy on every sales call right now, right? So it's like it makes it tough.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are some killers on Angie for sure.
Yeah.
They become Angie specialists or thumbtack specialists where they all their reviews go there. Yeah, and
Hmm.
they just treat it like a GMB basically. Yeah, I've definitely talked to those people before.
Yeah.
Um, Alex, now tell me how SEO can make rank and rent passive to semi-passive. How does it work on your end? Like if let's say I have a rank and rent and I'm just a rank and rent site and I'm spending money on it, how do you mitigate that with what you do?
Yeah, so semi-passive, right? Like, I think it's really about making sure that you're building out your team and that you're not scared to invest in your team, right?
Mm,
And so like I think exactly what we're talking about in the beginning, where people get stuck at different levels. It's really how much are you involved in the delivery is really the issue almost at every step, right? So like going from one deal to 10 deals, that might almost be the hardest part, right? Because or 10 clients, right?
mhm,
Because you're pretty much doing everything on your own at that point, right? Unless you have a team, unless you have a partner or something. And it just makes it so hard, right? Because you got to sell, then you got to do the delivery, and then at some point you're getting so booked, right? After one client, now you got to do two deliveries, right? And eventually you're going doing the delivery for five people.
mm,
Plus selling is almost like a full-time job in itself, right? So now you're stretched super thin. And at one point you don't even want to sell anymore because you're scared because you're like, how am I gonna do a good job for everybody, right? And so then you get stuck at that five deals, right?
mhm,
You might lose clients and sell and lose, right? And
mhm,
so I think that's where people get stuck. But sometimes you just have to take that risk and be like, look, I need to hire right now and I need it and take this part more and more out of my hands, even if it's cutting into my profit margins, even if I'm at zero, right? Like, if you have a full-time job and you're trying to do this on the side, I think that's kind of a great place to be because now, you can put all your margins to even zero, but build out your team, right? So you're setting that foundation for when you close a deal. Hey, the team takes care of this. Now I can just focus on sales. And that's when you're going to have that big boost between like that 5 to the 10K,
mhm.
right? Is where like, and then beyond, right?
Yeah.
Um, because now you can just focus on sales. But the same thing happens too, even as you scale. Like once you get to the 20 to 30, so even in my mind, I was like, look, I'm just gonna, there's a couple things that I do for my clients. My team handles most of it, but there's a few things I'll do because it's hard to train and it doesn't take me that long. But let's say it only takes you 2 hours a month per client, right? But once you get to 30 clients, that's 60 hours of additional work that you have to do for delivery. And you might not even realize that it's taking you that long, right? But now let's say we're going to scale to like 70, 100 clients, right? Now you're talking about 200 hours of extra work on your plate just for delivery. So
Hmm.
when is the sales going to happen? When is the marketing going to happen? When is like working on systems in your business going to happen, right? Like
Yeah.
because you're working on the delivery. So like eventually you got to be able to take that risk of, you know what, I'm cutting into my profits right now. I'm hiring the team, I'm putting systems in place, right, for the long term because now I'm trying to scale up to 3 million. Like it's going to be like so my mantra is like I don't touch delivery anymore at all. Like that's not it, it's that's not my job, right? That's
Hmm.
my that's my team's job, right? And so at this point, I even have like a project manager. I have a like a client account manager. So when we onboard clients, like I don't even know like 80% of my clients, honestly, right? Like the deals close, they go to the account manager, and then he goes to the project manager, and the project manager delegates the stuff out to like to like the backlinker and content guy and whatever, and
Nice.
the website builder, right?
Hmm.
So like I really took that like mindset, like, hey, at this point in the business, I'm not touching any of the delivery, zero, zero. Like I'm just working on the business now at this point, right?
Hmm. I'm
So
doing that
yeah,
right now too, but I still have a couple things I need to get rid of. I'm still doing a
zero,
little bit.
zero.
Yeah,
You
I
should be
still do a little
offended
bit of
when
the
it's
hooking. Like I hook, I do the live transfers. I have an admin that helps me, but she's not fully ready yet. But yeah, I'm trying
right.
to get all the delivery off my plate. You're absolutely right. Because
Mhm.
otherwise you're doing that dance. You're selling and you're part of the fulfillment, selling, you're part of the fulfillment. You can't be part of sales and fulfillment at the same time.
We'll just even do the math on it, right? So like, like if you want to double the number of your clients, you're spending 3 hours a month on each client on the delivery, right? Now you're adding, you might be at like 30, 40 clients, and now you're adding, what? So let's say
Hmm.
you did
If we
60
just say just
clients.
an hour per client, that's
Yeah.
still a lot.
Even an hour per, if you're trying to double your business, now you got 60 hours of extra work,
Right.
So like that's a whole week, right?
Hmm.
Just a long week, right? Just
Yes.
working just purely on delivery and not growing your business anymore, right? That's but every step of the way, that's the same problem happens, right? But just, but like now you have way more clients. So like
Right.
now, and then you get stuck, right? Because you're not doing a good job you're dropping the ball here and there, losing a client. Now you're
Hmm.
selling and losing, and
Hmm.
you're working super long, but you're not making any progress, right? So I mean, that's what happened to me for a long time. And I finally realized what I was doing, So
Right. No, it doesn't have to be, even if you're not making profit, but you're still paying the team and you're growing the operation, that is still a successful year. Like even if you look at your books and you're like, oh, I didn't hardly made any money this year. Well, you paid
yeah.
yourself a little bit, you paid your staff, you paid for your ads and stuff, and the company is still going. It's not in the red. So that is good. Number two is I figured for the last 7, 8 years that I've been doing this, having an employee every 10K marker has been good. So I would definitely
Hmm.
power through the first 10K, um, especially if you're bootstrapping this. Like guys in the group who are bootstrapping this, I would probably recommend sure you can get a sitter. Like a setter is one that you can get pretty cheap, but ideally
Mhm.
you want to get your first employee when you hit that 10K mark, and then a second employee maybe at the 15 or 20K mark. Because what
Yeah.
happens is sometimes people do it prematurely and now work drains and or dries out, and then you have to, let your people go and then hire again, and you can go through that thing. So I would definitely wait until
Yeah.
you hit, 8K, 10K, be on a solid ground, then hire your first employee.
So I got a couple thoughts on that. So that's a cool. I like that how you have a rule for that, right?
Hmm.
I think that's pretty smart. The way I'd look at it too is I look at it if you like I was looking at profit first, right? And as like a very basic way to kind of do like finance
Hmm. Oh
projections
yeah,
and
profit
management
first.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
I like that program.
So they broke down like, depending on where you're at income wise, like, what percentage of your revenue should go where, right? So they say hold 15% just for taxes, right?
Hmm.
And then your in the beginning, your profit margin should be like super small. You pay yourself a salary, and then there's like a certain percentage for expenses, right?
Right.
So I kind of keep my eye on that, and like once the profit margins keep growing and growing, now it's like, okay, the profit margins are too high, right? So like at this point, I can reinvest that much back into my like, oh, okay, we have this much money for employees here, right? So
Mm,
then I'll grow the team based on that, right? Or spend it on other expenses, you know.
makes
But
sense.
so yeah, I look at percentages, you know. Um, yeah. So, but also I would say if you have a full-time job, I would be a little bit more aggressive about trying to build the team out, you know, because one, you
Mm,
don't have as much time, right? So, you know, you're already time limited. And two, it's like you can go at, you know, don't be in the red, right? But like at least you can be like at very slim margins and survive, right?
hmm.
But now you're setting yourself up so that you can grow faster, like, you know, in the long term, you know?
Right.
So,
Yes, you can definitely, but you don't want to. What happens sometimes is people don't worry about profit or don't worry about because they're building the team and everything, and then they go into the red. You definitely don't want to go into the red, but if you're looking at your numbers and they're pretty low, and the profits are lean or thin, that's not
mhm.
necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're building a team. Yeah, that's a great point,
I have
man.
I have a
Yeah.
compromise here between our philosophies. I
Okay.
think I think you can tell. Yeah, you're right. You don't want to just hire and then be in the red and then you know and then lose your business and stuff, right? That's horrible. But like I'd say like if you're reached if you feel that point where you're getting deals,
Hmm.
but you're also losing clients on the other end at the same rate, right? And now you're stuck, right? Because how terrible is that? That like oh, I worked so hard to get a
Been
deal,
there.
and now I just lost the client on the other end, and I'm just stuck at 5K. I can't get beyond 5K. I think once you hit that kind of that zone, that's like a sign that you're not doing a good job for your clients on the fulfillment, and
Hmm.
you probably need help, you know,
Yep.
from the team. So,
I like that. Yes. And actually, I think I mentioned this in a Zoom before or a live before. Removing myself from certain operations has been very instrumental. We don't realize it,
mhm.
but we are the bottleneck a lot of times.
Yes, all
So
the time,
all the
all the
time, right?
time. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why you're the most valuable employee in your own business, right? Because you're the one that keeps it growing, right? So if you're
Right.
stuck doing backlinks or whatever, or even even project management, right? That's what I realized. And maybe this is something that's happening to you is like when I onboard a client, like then I'm like, okay, backlinkers, this is what you do. Content writers, this is what you do.
Hmm.
And I realized that takes a long time too, right? You got to sit
Yeah.
down and be like, oh, where's this guy at? Let me look, analyze his SEO. How many backlinks does he need? Right? Like, so, you know, I took one of my VAs who has been with me forever, and he's been through all the things, right? He's done content, he's done backlinks, he's seen every step of it, right? And so, like, I was like, I made him the project manager, right? So so it's easier for me to scale because then he just delegates it out to like the backlinker and the content writer and stuff. I have people working under him and he handles that too, right? So yeah, so that's where it becomes a little bit more passive, right?
Yes, that's absolutely, and that's exactly that's exactly right. You mentioned a good point of removing yourself from the equation.
Hmm.
You want to steer the ship, but you also want to stay out of the way. And
Right.
that's what I learned. Absolutely right. Like I basically just asked, and I had a similar situation where a content manager, rock star, she joined the team and she did content, she did all kinds of stuff, and now she's the project manager because she's seen it all. And
Hmm.
now, when I hand over a project to my project manager, she knows exactly what to do. There's standard operating procedure in place for web
Hmm.
design, for rank and rent, for all these things. And she just takes it from there. She's got template of the emails that she sends for onboarding, email one, email two. It's beautiful. I would have never done as good of a job as she does.
Yeah, yeah, man. And yeah, just stretching yourself too thin, it's really frustrating, right? Because, we're probably all like ambitious, smart people. The fact that we're willing to risk on ourselves to start our own business, right?
Yeah.
So, we have a certain standard for what we think is good, right? But once you're stretching yourself so thin, like all the quality on everything starts to suffer. And at one point I was just like, man, why do I suck at everything? Like everything I'm doing is just like half-assed. And I feel like I'm still not getting to everything. And yeah, it was just like lack of delegation, really. So
Yep. Absolutely. Um, awesome. So are you guys spending any money on ads right now?
Yeah, no, so we've slowed down the ads pretty much, yeah, almost to zero. So, I'm really focusing on the
Nice.
SEO. But yeah, but we still have like half of our revenue is pretty much still rank and rent from what we were doing before.
Beautiful. But you managed over the last year to really work the SEO up and work the Google ad budget down.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I guess one thing we saw with the rank and rent was just like, Google is making it harder to do the almost everything, right?
Yep.
Getting the GMBs verified, getting them ranked and stuff on the heat maps. And so I just thought, I was like, look, it's still very possible, right? You can still make a ton of money on it. But
Hmm.
I just saw the trend, right? Is this going to be easier or harder over time, right? So I was like, it's just so easy to have somebody's brand that already has a GMB, and it's like it's pretty easy to rank that, right?
Sure.
And so what I figured was if we have it at a very low price, and if it's ranked and it's
Hmm.
producing leads, then the client retention is going to be easier, and the scaling will be possible. And I guess with the SEO too is like, well, my situation is different because I have a business partner who does all the sales. So um I just wanted to keep making offers like every single day, right? um Shiv told me, he's like, yeah, make two offers a day and you're going to be good, right? So I took that as my North Star, and I was like, how can we make offers every day? And that's kind of where so that's where the focus on SEO, I kind of transitioned a little. So
Smart. Yeah. I have two, I think two or three sites that are SEO only. All the other ones are still hooked up to ads to get, decent amount of traffic. But only two from back in the day that really stuck. But they were very textbook. One of
mm,
them has never seen an ad. Like one of the sites I have in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, has never seen an ad before. Just straight up organic from the get-go. We did really good with SEO. Um, so
hmm
that is a goal. We're talking about passive and semi-passive income. And the goal here
yeah.
is really push the SEO part with my content manager and work on the backlinks, work on the phase two of rank and rent. The phase one is great. It's working well. The sales are flowing, and that's all nice and dandy. But I feel like we need to deliver to these people in the long run. And sometimes, we don't look back and the ads default or they do this or that. And now the client is not in a happy spot. So the phase two of
Right.
this process is us really bringing the SEO up so we can spend less. I'm about to pay 16 grand to Google, well, to the credit card that's paying Google. That just
Yeah.
goes to show you like ads cost money. Yeah, you're closing a lot of money, you're bringing a lot of money, but you're also paying a lot of money. So it pays to have something in place that would replace those ads eventually.
Do you got GMBs for most of your properties?
Not all of them, no. We're still working on them, and I'm sure you can relate. It's pretty tricky now to get these GMBs in place.
Yeah, I know. But if you do, I think one thing too is like also the reviews are hard to get, right? So
Correct.
So what we've done is like we really, really recruited our clients to try to get reviews, right? You know, I mean, I push it super, super hard, you know,
Same.
because yeah, because it just makes it easier, right? If they're helping you out, you know.
It's
So
a great shortcut. We even had some of our rank and rent sites and branded client sites on reputation management software, like an AI software that just automates every time someone pays a bill, sends them a link, and it badgers them until they leave a review. Yeah,
mhm.
we've resorted to that too. And you're right, like reviews are very instrumental in the organic space. A great shortcut to clicks. Um, sometimes you just go from, 2 reviews to 12 reviews, and all of a sudden, like the gates open and they're starting to get calls and clicks and yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking at heat maps too, actually did like a statistical analysis, right? Like what's like the biggest ranking factor, you know?
Mm,
And for heat maps, it's definitely reviews. So it's like it's hard, they're hard to get, right? Because Google's way more
hmm
strict on them now, right? And but like if if you can do it, then it's like that's like the biggest in like return on investment you're gonna get, like as
Yep,
far as like leads coming in, you know? So
absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I tell everyone. It's the best shortcut. And if you're going to spend $50 a month or $100 a month on a software to automate your reviews, I think you should do it.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
A little note on that too. The one thing that is like the business owners, they're a little hesitant to ask for reviews sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Um, and a lot of times I think it's because they're kind of shy about it, right? And so I'll give them like the best way you're going to have the highest conversion rate on getting reviews is like when you're right there, the job is done, and you
Yep.
ask the person, right? There's not even all the text notifications. What
Right.
conversion rate are you getting? Like 30%, and they're only doing like 5 or 6 jobs a month. These contractors, right? So like
Yeah.
every client counts, you know. So it's like
Yeah.
so I give them a script, right? Even if it's just like one sentence because it's kind of like asking a girl on a date, right? Like, if you're nervous about it, right, it's gonna be super hard. But like, so like, if guys are kind of shy about it, then if you just give them something to say, right, then they don't
Mm,
have to worry about like coming up with something like if you're nervous, right? And I
right.
think the same thing happens in sales, right? That's why it's good to have a process and a script, and I think this is like a smaller version of that, but one thing they're hesitant to do is that. So I'll give them the Google link to send on the text, right? And then I'll give them a script, right? And be like, at least they still don't do it sometimes, but I try to facilitate it as much as possible,
Yeah.
right? So
What I've also done for, I like that. I like that you gave him a script and a link to share. I've done that before. I've never given him a script, but I've shared the link before. And I just tell him,
mhm.
hey, send this to everyone that you know. Send this to all your friends and family and clients and all that stuff. Um,
Right, right.
and so, I mean, some of them will get weird about it. I'm like, if someone knows you and they have a couple of nice words to say about you, just send them the link. They don't have to be a client. Who cares? Um,
I have a superstar client, and he was in junk removal, right? Which
yeah.
is like I didn't even want to touch that niche, but that's what he was doing. So, but and I was like, and he got like 200 reviews in like 8 months, and he set the bar for everybody now, even for
Wow.
me and my agency. I'm like, dude, we need more reviews on our GMB,
Yeah.
And I was just like, but he would be like asking his clients' wives and kids, and like he'd get like 3 per client, and it's like,
Heck
yeah,
yeah.
just and it's not that hard, man. It's like it takes you what 5 minutes after your
Hmm.
job to potentially double like the income in your entire business. It's like the ROI is so ridiculous.
It is.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
people are just so shy to do it. I don't know why. So
Yeah, I had a power washing company. We were exploring different ways for them to get reviews and all that stuff because power washing or soft washing is pretty competitive everywhere you go. So they got
mhm.
QR codes to the link on the back of their phones. So every time you're talking to a
Nice.
customer, oh, it's great. Oh, scan the code right here on the back of my phone. They scan it, it goes straight to the GMB and it pops up the 5-star thing. So that one is good too. That way,
Hmm.
you're not giving the customer homework. You're making it easy for them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I like it, man. I like it. So we established that passive income is not really passive income. It can be passive once you scale, obviously, and get to higher numbers, but building the operation can sometimes shadow over, the profits and all that stuff. And it looks like you're not being successful and you're not making money, but underneath things are working and you're building a team and you're injecting money where it needs to be injected.
I got a cool question for you,
Yes,
Mahmoud.
sir.
So, yeah, I'm always like spewing out stuff on. I'm North Korean, so I have like dictator tendencies.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
you were North Korean. That's where you're
well,
from
like
originally?
half my family is from my dad's side of the family is from North Korea, so I
And they
have
got
like
out back in the day?
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. They escaped during the war and stuff, crazy stories,
Hmm.
So that's why I'm all anti-war because yeah, you hear all these crazy stories. But anyways, I got a question for you. So do you ever sit down and like plan out like, okay, like I'm trying to get to 70K. What's my team gonna look like? How many people am I gonna need for that? And kind of backwards engineer your way into that 70K, for example.
Yeah, I've done it before, but I'm not really like a numbers guy. Like I'm not good at, sitting down and running numbers and all that stuff, but I have done it before. And I should probably do it again because my wife has been asking me to have a meeting so we can go over, finances and all that stuff. So I could sit down and do the same thing for my business, but I haven't done it in like 2, 3 months. Um, but I have. To answer your question, I have where
Right.
I'm like, okay, I'm right here. I'm making, let's say, 50K and I'm profiting, let's say 20K, okay, or 15K. How can I, first of all, get to 100K? And second, how can I profit the most of that 100K? Like what are some of the steps that I need to put in place? And that got me into, okay, so my content manager needs to also do backlinks. And my senior web developer should oversee SEO. So when I sit down and look at these things, I figure out more roles or editing roles for my team where I give them different things that will support what we do, rank and rent. So yes, I
Mhm.
have reverse engineered before. This is a good time to do it again, especially Q4. We're in quarter 4 now. Wow. I can't believe we're in quarter 4. Um, yeah, just
Yeah,
to do
man.
some projections and because that's my goal. My goal is to get to 100K and I have reverse engineered before how I'm going to get there, but I need to put my ducks in a row again. I do have a spreadsheet of all my rank and rents where I look at them and I see the numbers. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I need to go
I'll
back.
do I'll, I'll do it about once a year, right? Like when it's like New
Yeah.
Year's time is kind of when I reevaluate. And
Hmm.
every year I realize like I put the goals too aggressive for the amount of work that I do.
Right.
And I think and so every year you get more realistic about it, right? And you get better at planning because you have so much more experience and oh, I messed up here and
Hmm.
this worked and this didn't work and this is what I can expect. This is how many sales calls I need to make before I close a deal, right? You have all that understanding, going in that
Yeah.
second year, right? And so your planning becomes more efficient and it becomes more realistic. And I think that's important because like it sets expectations for yourself, right? It's like, a lot of young hot shots come in here, they might be good at sales, they'll close a few deals and they'll be like, all right, I'm getting it to 100,000 in 6 months. And then they get nowhere close to that because you don't know, like, you
Hmm.
don't know what you don't know, so you don't know what to expect on how much work it's going to take. But if you
Right.
really like sit down and think about it, you're going to be like, all right, if I'm going to get to 100,000, like how many due diligences do I need to do, right? Like how much money on ads am I going to have to spend, right? How many sales calls am I going to make? How many live transfers are going to make? You already have all the training, so you know like the basic process, so you could backwards engineer like how much work it's going to take, right? Then you have that expectation because like most people, that's we were talking about like people expect this is going to be a passive business, right? but they underestimate how much work it's going to take to get to that point. So like I think it helps with like even your morale is just to know like to sit down and have the realistic expectations of like, all right, if I put in this much work, like this is what I can expect out of it, you know? And you're gonna be wrong, right? And sometimes the sales aren't gonna go right, the ads aren't gonna go right, so you're gonna miss goals.
Hmm.
And then but now at the end of the year, you can reevaluate and have like a more realistic plan. And every year you do that, you just get like I realized that the planning and everything, once I started taking that seriously, and I even plan every week, like every Sunday, I'll sit down and make sure, like, I have my whole week scheduled out, like to the hour, pretty much, you
Wow.
know? And ever since I started doing that, like, I've been so much more effective, and also it gives you like that, it takes away a lot of stress too, right? Because there's an infinite amount of stuff we can do to make our business better, right? Should I be
Right.
posting more on social media to get my reputation up? Yeah, branding. Yeah, all that stuff is important, right? But what's more important, like me getting my salesperson trained so that he's converting, right? Like, or converting higher, you know? Like that's probably more important. That's going to have a better, bigger impact on my bottom line, like
Hmm.
today, right? So I'll sit down and prioritize everything every Sunday. Like I'll have like about an hour that I spend and just have my whole week scheduled out. But what's also good is like there's an end to my day, right? Like I know it's like, all right, at 6 o'clock I'm done, right? Like,
Hmm.
because and like then you could if you've accomplished everything on your itinerary for that day, then you can be proud of yourself, and you can let go of the stress,
Right.
and just kind of
I
forget.
know
Because
exactly
this is a
what you mean. Because
yeah, this
sometimes,
is it's a marathon, right? So,
absolutely. No, I know exactly what you mean. Because when you, and I've covered this in other lives, when you don't do certain things that you promise yourself that you're going to do, your brain does not let it go. Even though it's
right.
6 p.m. and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends or whatever, you're like, something is nagging at you, something is poking you. And that's
Yeah.
you. That's your brain telling you, hey, you've been a POS today and you did not do the things that you promised yourself to do. And
Hmm.
when you schedule them out and when you have everything on paper and you have it like you say by the hour, you're more likely to check those boxes and you're more likely to be happy with yourself at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and also I know I have an hour to get this done, right? Or also, what, and eventually
mm,
you cut yourself slack too, because sometimes you like pack too much stuff in your schedule, right? It's unrealistic. I can't get all this stuff done. So,
mm,
each week I get more realistic about it, and that now I'm hitting the goals. I'm getting everything done on that day,
nice.
right? But it's like, okay, I got 2 hours to do this. Instead of it's just like some vague thing, and when you're super motivated, you get everything done, and when you're not, like nothing happens. As opposed to like, all right, I got 2 hours. Let me figure out this. My salesperson is having trouble converting. Let me listen to some of his calls and think of some advice to give him, right?
All right.
And I have 2 hours to do it, right? And then you're gonna get it done, right? As opposed to like you just have a vague feeling, oh, my salesperson is struggling, but yeah, I don't really feel like doing that today, right?
Yeah, right. You don't take action. It's just an idea. You're like, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's written down, it's more likely to happen. If it's just an idea in the head, it will be transient. It will come in, you'll remember it, it will go away, and you just
Right.
that's it's just going to stay an idea. Absolutely,
But
man.
even more than that, though, it's like not only is it, but it's also at 2 p.m. I have 2 hours to do this, right? And then it's like,
Urgency.
right, or it's not even urgency. It's just my job, right?
Right.
So
But you
6 hours,
create that, you create those deadlines for yourself. So things are not just open-ended. And
right?
that's how you create that urgency. Like from 2 to 4, at 4 p.m., I have to be working on this thing. So I better finish this thing, this other thing from 2 to 4. I only have 2 to 4 to finish it. Yeah, you create that urgency, and that's the kick in the butt that everyone needs.
You become your own boss,
Right.
right? And
Yep.
then even sometimes I'll be like lazy. I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do this, right?
Right.
But it's like, all right, it's 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
I have to do it, right?
It's not the
So
most politically correct phrase, but I like, you're cracking your own whip. Like you gotta be, if you're an entrepreneur, you gotta be able to crack your own whip. You're your own boss, so it's got to happen, or
There-
you
there-
will cut yourself slack, but you're not gonna like yourself afterwards.
there's a difference between discipline and self-discipline, you know? So
Mm,
they're two different skill sets, I would say, you know?
right. I feel like discipline is like external. Like you see something and you're like, oh, I want to be like that. But well, no, like that's more like motivation. Uh,
Well, I was like, because for example, like I was a judo national champion when I was a kid, right?
oh,
So
wow.
like, but I had a really good team, right? Like we had lots of national champions come out there. So like, you know, the coach set great expectations. And so like it was hard. Like I dedicated a lot of time to it, you know, as a little kid, you know.
Yeah.
And but like so I had like this conception of myself. I was like, oh, I'm a hard worker and I can achieve great things, right? So like I always had that in my head. But when I started my own business and I got to the point where I actually quit my full time and I was like, all right, I got all this time now. Like my business is gonna take off, you know? And I realized, and then started watching YouTube videos, and you know, just like, man,
Yeah.
like it was, it's a totally different game, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
I had to actually like create a system to like put myself in check, right? Like, you know, like you were saying, like crack the whip, right? And then, but yeah, but once you do it, it takes off so much stress. Like I said, like waking up every morning and just like having a million things to think about, and just like as opposed to that, it's like, oh no, it's 2 o'clock. I gotta figure out the backlink training today. You know,
Right.
it's like it takes away so much stress. It's like just like coming into a job now. You know, so
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I
yeah.
like that. And for me, the rule of thumb that I've been having this time of year is always having four hooks. Always, at
Mm,
all times. If I
okay.
look at my list, I have four hooks that I'm working at all time. It's not very overwhelming. It's not little. It's still four hooks, so I'm more likely to close one a week. Obviously, I want to bring this up to, higher numbers once I have my setter and my sales, guy in place and everything. But for
Hmm.
now, since I'm just working everything myself in terms of sales, four hooks at any given time. If I sell one of the hooks, I have to replace it. Um,
Mm,
so I sold a deal last week. I had to uh, bring in another hook, and I actually hooked two. So now I have five hooks, but at least four hooks a week because that keeps everything else working.
right. And I love that too because so you have your little North Star, right?
Yep.
And it's ambitious. I mean, you're still like pacing at a deal a week, which is, you know, pretty awesome.
Hmm.
But, you know, that's the difference between you and maybe like a hot shot rookie who comes in super exciting. They're like, oh, I'm going to do like 10 deals this month, right? But like they're, you know what I'm saying? But like you have an exact, you know, plan and
Hmm.
it's like realistic too, right? It's not
Right.
like you're saying eight, right? It's like, okay, like I can do four, you know, at a
Yeah.
time and I can manage this, but I'm still growing at a really good rate, you know?
Hmm.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
mhm.
Anything else you want to add today, Eugene? Anything you want to share with the group?
Yeah, yeah, if you don't mind, I want to do a little plug, you know?
Yeah.
So so yeah, like I said, I'm trying to get reviews for my GMB. Um
Okay.
so one
I'll leave
so
you
one thing
one.
I've been Oh, thank you. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Hmm.
But what I want to do is, yeah, I don't want to ask for them for free. You know, so what I've been offering, like, you know, I'll do like an hour of consultation for free. Just kind of, if you want to jump on a Zoom call, I can kind of go over stuff with your business and see if I had
Cool.
any suggestions that could help.
Awesome.
And if you like it, then that's when I send you the review link. So, yeah, if anybody wants to take me up on that offer, you can hit me up, Eugene Song on Facebook, and
I'm down.
you want
I
to do
want
it? All
to
right.
I
Well,
want to
yeah.
chat. Yeah,
I
I'll leave
mean,
you a review and then we can chat about SEO. Yeah, I could learn a couple things.
yeah, so if any of you out there in digital landlords land out there wants to do it too, the invitation is open to everybody. So
Sweet. Awesome,
yeah.
awesome. I appreciate you, Gene. Thank you for sharing all these nuggets, man. I definitely want to see you back in the group. So yeah, come back, man. We should do this again.
All right, yeah, thanks for inviting me, Mahmood, and being patient with me too. I know it was hard to wrangle me onto the call, but
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
so I
You got
appreciate
it.
it.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys in the group. Peace out.
See ya.